wonderful to see everybody here this morning. Thank you so much, everyone coming out today. I want to give special thanks to our great Senator Doug Jones. When I accepted this position, I knew it was going to be a huge undertaking. But thanks to people like Marshall County Chair Susan McKinney, John Baker, and Joyce Buttram, I made it through my first primary. I also want to thank Larry McMahon for his kindness and his generosity in providing this headquarters to all our Democrat groups. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Wendy Warnock. She has catered all my events, and she catered this delicious meal today. Let's give Wendy a hand. I'd like to introduce our new DeKalb County Democratic Executive Committee officers. Our Vice Chair, John Baker. Our Secretary, Angie Sugar. Our Treasurer, Wendy Warnock. And I'm your Chair, Pam Lyons. My motto has always been, teamwork makes the dream work. And we must have a team. This DeKalb County Executive Committee needs to be a team. We need to rebuild this party. We have not had any meetings since pre-COVID. And now's the time. Now's the time to build our team. So I urge everyone that's here from DeKalb County, please fill out an application and please join this important committee. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our youngest member of our committee and also the first one to join our committee, Christopher Bravo.
Well, good morning. How is everyone?
Good morning.
It's always great when I can go out and see a group of friends with friendly faces, but it's even better when they're all Democrats. Thankful to have you.
There you go.
I'm used to speaking into my feelings.
You have to tell the whole folks, we can hear it. Like talking in the microphone, talk about it, we can hear this.
I was thankful to given this opportunity to be here with y'all, and always thankful that I can do something like this, especially for such an important cause. And I just want to go over some basic things. The importance of county committees. First thing is it supports the local party. It's a great way for all the members that are here, the more the better, because they get more votes, and it really helps, especially come election time. And that's the first priority necessarily. Whenever there's an election coming around, you hear about it all the time. But it's not just you go out, make sure you are registered to vote, know and vote. There's a lot more that comes with it. Especially being a college student, it was every day that I heard about something different. And people just really have that basic knowledge. It's just not readily available, so it's important that we get that information out to these people that probably don't even know what really reminds of. So, some people that just are Democrats, they probably are beside you and just don't know. It's important to be able to reach out to as many people as possible to let them know, especially here. But friendly people, friends, they can come out at any time and just have a body of people that are supportive. Another important thing is just educating everyone to know just a lot about what we do here and educating about all the candidates, all the different issues, why it matters that your voice should be heard. Because being in such a red state, the other side, which is the better side, the blue side, is really important. I know, especially being in college, I always hear, I have some friends that we're in a group chat and they argue. Because one friend is blue, the other side is red. And it's, that the butting heads, it gets so annoying because it's like, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm still going to tell you what I believe, but I'm not really going to listen to you.
Definitely don't mind.
I have one friend that's in DC at the moment. He just graduated in December and he's over there, and thankfully he's a Democrat, and he's really helped me. I've known him for the past 4 years, and he's really helped me become more Democrat. He's been a really great help. And organizing volunteers is important for all levels of local government. So town hall meetings, there's some town hall meetings where there's just few people there. I think it should be important for us to have more Democrats there, just so that they know that we're here and we have our opinions that matter, and we have just so much to say, and you should be heard. And then the media is really important. Being in a small county, very rural, we still exist. We're still Democrats in a small part of the state, and we want people to know we're here. We deserve to be heard. We have things to say, and it matters to really just uplift the community and just to get things going. I wasn't able to have so much time to have a better speech. I'm just kind of going off what I know, but you're doing great. It really is. I just want to say the importance of people to just sign up, get involved with the local party, and it's not just about voting for president every 4 years or voting for the midterm elections. It's really right from the bottom. Most local office, probably one of the most important. Just last night, I was talking to some friends, and they were talking about why are my roads paved, and talking about all of this. Well, if you're complaining, but you're not really getting involved with these important parts of government, then take a look. Just get more involved. Because it's really important to just get out and vote in all aspects of politics and government, not just every 2 years, every 4 years. But talking about presidential elections, we have one coming up in 2024. It's important to get it started as early as possible. We have one person running, Trump, and that's scary to see that he's decided to run for re-election. So we need to put our support from right now up until then, so that we can make sure that Joe Biden has a second term to continue doing the important things for our country. I'm already thankful for all that he's done so far, and I hear all the time how Joe Biden is this, is that. I think he's been a pretty good president. I mentioned a friend earlier in DC, his name is Addison, and he's just, every time Joe Biden has signed an executive order that helps us or helps pass something, he's always like, thanks, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And it seems like almost every day we have to say thanks, Joe Biden, because he's done so much for us already. And he might be up there at his age. He has done so much more than some other infrastructure support is bad. If we want to compete with other nations, we need to make sure that we are keeping up in all aspects, and that includes infrastructure. And looking beyond the presidential election is the importance of midterm elections as well. because I know, especially with this last one, here, I had one professor say, yeah, there's a red wave coming. It seems like all signs are pointing to a red wave. And then that morning I'm sitting in class, and as results are coming in, and it's like, Democrat has won. Democrat has won. One Republican. Democrat has won. And even late at night, more results are coming in, and I'm feeling great. We lost control of the House, but by a very slim majority. And that felt great to, have predicted that we were going to lose by a bunch of seats, and we did. So I was very thankful to hear that, and especially thankful, those candidates, Walker, Oz, that lost, especially.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that they're not sitting in Washington D.C. Very thankful.
Now we gotta get more of the green over there.
And go.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful, very honored, because sitting to my left is former Senator of Alabama, Doug Jones. This is actually my second time giving a speech before he does. Even back then, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, I'm very thankful. It's such a great opportunity, and I just wanted everyone to clap for him, and I'm going to introduce a former Senator from Alabama, Doug Jones.
Damn, there are Democrats in the Capitol. Look, I knew that. First of all, even though it has been now 2 years since I left the Senate, I still haven't been able to get everywhere to talk to people and to tell them how much I love and appreciate all that you did for me in 2017 and 2020 and in those years in between. And I got to tell you this true story. The 2017 election was one of the most exciting few months, and December 12th, 2017 was unbelievable. That election night was crazy. But there are two things in that campaign, other than hanging out with Charles Barkley, that stand out for me and Louise. And she apologizes, can't be here today. She's got things going on back in Birmingham. But there are two things, and there were two times in that campaign where the power of people and the momentum that we were building and the movement that we were building really shone through. One was in Mobile. We had a fish fry down on the river down there, and there were 400 or 500 people in Mobile, and it was just stunning. And we just looked out over this sea of people. But the other one was right up here in DeKalb County one night at a barbecue. It was earlier in the campaign. And I came up here, and we had 2 or 3 staff in the car, and there were people out the doors. Hell, they'd already eaten the barbecue. I couldn't eat anything. There were so many people. And really, I can't tell you how exciting and important that was for us, because it was a swath going on as a Democrat in Alabama. A Democrat had not won a statewide election in Alabama since 2006. A Democrat had not been elected to the United States Senate since 1992. We knew we were an uphill battle, but we knew because of folks like you, we had a shot. And lo and behold, we were able to pull off something that I can tell. I promise you this. It's still talked about all over the country. It really is. I can't go into an airport and walk down the concourse without somebody recognizing me and telling me where they were on election night. It was absolutely stunning. Now, the one funny story I got to tell you about that election is a conversation I had with that Louise and I had with President Obama a couple of months after we got elected. He's got a really nice office up in Washington. He was working on a book, and we arranged to go have a visit with him. And I told Louise as we were going, I said, I've been wanting to talk to him because he did a robocall for us at the end, and he really helped push us over the top, and that was just so good. I said, but the thing that he's going to really like is that as a percentage of the total vote cast in 2017, we got a higher percentage of black turnout than Barack Obama did in '08. In his race, the African American vote was about 28, 29, about 28%, 27.5. In my race, it was close to 30% of the total vote. And that, you can imagine, in a race out of 1.3 million people, and you win by 22,000, that's a big deal. And I was really excited. We said, Doug, I'm not so sure I'd say that. I said, no. He's a political guy. So we visit, he is relaxed and smiling, that big old Obama smile. We sit down in his office, and I'm sitting across the coffee table. He's got his feet on the coffee table, and we're just talking politics. We're talking about everything going on. And finally, I see my opening. And I it come down, we're talking about the race, and see that opening, and we saw it coming, and she just and I said, well, Mr. President, I got to tell you, my race was so good. But I said, the one thing I'm really proud of is that as a percentage of the vote, I got a higher percentage of the black vote than you got in '08. And he didn't miss a beat. He was president. I'm not. He grinned and grinned. He said, well, you know, that's great, but I think if I'd run against Roy Moore, I could have probably started. Fist bumping. Just a couple things here, and because the reason this is so exciting to see you guys here is because it is going to take these local parties. It is going to take the Democrats on the very local level to try to build this party up. We can't do it from the top down now, man. We've shown that, okay? We have absolutely shown that. And we have got to use the resources of our local parties to try to do this. I have, when I left the Senate, I tried to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And it was, I had a lot of different offers and a lot of different things coming up. Could have made a lot more money probably than I'm making now because I don't want to be a lobbyist because I still got things to do. It was one of those things when you come that close to being the Attorney General, you get kind of deflated a little bit, and then I just started looking around and thought, no, there's too many people. There's too many people that supported us. There's too many people that see the hope in what we did for 3 years in the Senate and what we, I think, gave to the South. People forget sometimes. I think that the election in 2017 really boosted Stacey Abrams in the Georgia vote. It boosted votes across the South. It boosted people everywhere. And there's still a lot of momentum there, even though I kept trying to tell people that the hope we gave was not that we were going to win elections, but we were going to compete and we were going to do things. And we're still struggling to do that. But I have been, over the last couple of years, still trying to figure out exactly where I can be the most helpful in Alabama, but elsewhere. I got to tell you, I spent more miles and more time in planes. Lowell asked me a minute ago, she said, where are you spending most of your time? I said, Delta, American. Because after I finished what was just an incredible 2 months at the White House, getting the first African American justice. I got to tell you, I hit the road. I hit the road, and I bet I traveled to 20 states campaigning for people, working for parties. I did fundraisers here in Alabama for folks, but the message was always the same. When I first started this, and y'all have faced this, you still face it every day. Back in May, the president's polling was way down. Everybody, even Democrats, were dogging Joe Biden. Even Democrats, most of them won't run for president. And everybody was saying, no, he should run. He's too old. He's too whatever. And I kept saying, I'm tired of the Debbie Downer. I want you to look and see what this guy's done. I want you to do that. By August, all of a sudden, people were singing off the same hymn that we had been talking about all summer. And fortunately, because of the work that he's done, the work that other people were doing around, and the fact that the Republican Party is still struggling right now with their identity. They don't know who the hell they are. And unfortunately, the most vocal voices that are out there are crazy. They're just just being. The reason that's important for us is because if you see what's going on in Montgomery today, they're crazy too. Okay, they don't have your best interest at heart. They're looking at fighting postal votes every day. They're, and out in Hoover, Alabama, this past week, one parent objected to a Black History Month speaker coming into Hoover High School, so they canceled. Now, you tell me who's doing the cancel culture these days. It ain't Democrats. The Democrats still have an opening and welcoming party. And I gave a speech the other day. John Baker, you would really appreciate this. I'm the former chairman of the party. I gave a speech to the Birmingham Rotary Club, which is generally I call the white man's business club. And, I started out saying it's great to see a lot of old friends and a few people who actually supported. But the purpose of the speech was really pretty straightforward with it. And that is, until you wake up as business leaders in Alabama, until you wake up and get away from this tribalism and getting away from all of this straight ticket voting and start supporting good people in another party, this state is going to lag behind. In every major metric right now, the Republicans took control of this state in 2010. They took control in part because they wanted to get rid of corruption. Well, what happened? First thing that happened is the Speaker of the House goes to prison. He just got out recently. They took control because of all the things that they were trying to do, those cultural. And look where we are. By every major metric, we've either fallen behind or we're at least the same. We have not progressed as a state under this leadership. And it's because instead of focusing on the investments in education throughout the state, not just in Mountain Brook and Hoover and Shelby County, but throughout the state, we're not investing in education the way we should, so that all boats get lifted. We're not putting businesses and industries in places other than the obvious ones in Huntsville and Birmingham and Mobile. Some in the Wiregrass, mainly because of Fort Rucker, which is, by the way, whose name is going to get changed because it was a Confederate general. That's going to get changed soon, as it should be. I sponsored with Elizabeth Warren and Tim Kaine the amendment to the NDAA to get all those military bases renamed. Now I told these guys, and I keep like to just talk, and I apologize. I'm going to try to remember what Howell Heflin used to tell everybody. That I'm just going to tell you what Elizabeth Taylor said to her fifth husband. I promise I won't keep you long. But there's just so much. I told these guys in Birmingham, I said, when I was growing up, and there were only 3 TV stations, I used to see all these TV commercials about blind taste tests. Coke versus Pepsi, Hydrox cookies versus Oreos, you name it. And everybody would have these. And some of them weren't taste tests. Some of them was like, who can get your sheets the whitest? Which laundry detergent? There were these blind tests. And dang, I wish we had one for politics.
Yeah.
I wish we had one. And I told these guys, I said, bear with me just a minute. Let's try. And I went there and I said, let's talk about person number one. Person number one, and who's going to probably be running as a candidate again. Person number one has had the most historic job growth in this country ever. Ever. Pre-pandemic levels of jobs are not only where they were before the pandemic, they have exceeded. You talk about bringing jobs back to America. We have built manufacturing jobs, the growth in manufacturing jobs, which y'all know full well up here, the struggle of when we lost manufacturing jobs, has come back to America in a big way. You passed the CHIPS Act, which is bringing technology, which is a national security issue as well as manufacturing. Back. You're doing things for veterans in the PAC Act. You're doing things for healthcare. You're passing an infrastructure bill that's going to bring billions of dollars to Alabama. billions of dollars. You pass that and not but two people. No, maybe just one. I can't remember if Shelby voted for that or not. But I know Terry Sewell did, and every other Republican did it. And when you start building roads up here, don't let your congressman take credit for it. Okay? And I went through this whole list. And one of the most significant things I think that we have seen, getting through the pandemic, getting people vaccinated, but also using the bully pulpit to make America what it should be in its standing in the world. Bringing our allies together, fighting for democracy in Ukraine, absolutely being the fulcrum of where we should be in fighting for democracy and against autocracy, against all of those who would tear down our democratic values. We're doing that. And you contrast that. You contrast that with someone who wanted to tear down institutions. Yeah, he passed some tax cuts, but only for the wealthiest in this country, only for the wealthiest people and corporations in this country, as opposed to person number one who is trying to build from the bottom up and the middle out. Person number two wanted to destroy the FBI, wanted to destroy our institutions of government, refused to believe and accept elections, the free and fair elections and the transition of power. You can't, I could go on and on and on, and y'all know who I'm talking about and what I'm talking about. But I told these guys, I said, let me tell you something. If we could truly do a blind taste test, and you didn't know who I was talking about, when I got through with person number one, you'd be standing up cheering and clapping because it's a pro-business, pro-person, pro-equal opportunity, pro-American. Success, not just talking, but success with what we've done. And I'm telling you, if person number two, when I finished up, you'd be standing up saying, lock him up. And these guys were just stunned. Ain't nobody talked to them like that. And I said, until we get to a point where you can put aside the tribalism. Now, look, folks, don't get me wrong. There are places like you guys for party loyalists. We've got to have that. Those are the bases of the party. But it's all of the folks in the middle that we need to talk to and work with to try to tell them, you don't have to vote for us all the time, but look at what we're doing and how we're doing. And I got to tell you, I've thought about this an awful lot over the years, even before I got elected, but certainly since I got elected and after I was defeated in 2020. We can't really talk on a local level about Republicans versus Democrats. And I know that may be a little counter to what you hear in this room, but I don't think we can really talk about Republicans versus Democrats. And I'll give you a great example. In 2020, I went up to Huntsville. I did a lot for Huntsville. Okay. Shelby gets all the credit. And he gets a lot, by the way. He should. I mean, look, I got no qualms with that. But I did a lot for Huntsville, too. I did a lot for those business leaders up there, and they knew it. I had a private meeting with about 20 of their CEOs and CFOs. And I went through and I was trying to tell them how important it was to have a Democrat and a Republican. Because the state can only get so much. And even Shelby would call me and say, I've gone as far as I could go in my caucus. Can you help with this? And I'd say, absolutely, but I need you to help with this. And he would always do it. We had a really great relationship. And I talked and I tried to explain. I spent 15, 20 minutes. I asked questions of these guys about the importance. And here's what I told them too. I said, you guys think because you have been conditioned, you've learned to think this way, that your worst nightmare going into 2020 is a Democratic president and a Democratic Senate. And I'm telling you, I know that that's not true. What I do know is your worst nightmare is a Democratic president and a Democratic Senate and not having a voice in the Democratic caucus. And every one of them were going, okay, they nod their head. But instinctively, after I spoke, three of them, at least three, came up. It's a great talk that we really appreciate. Would you ever consider switching parties? That's the mentality that we are facing. And you're not going to break that mentality, folks, with just saying, let me tell you all about the Democrats. Because the minute you mention that, you're going to shut some people up. What you got to do is that blind taste test. You got to talk a little bit about that blind taste test. You got to say, well, let's talk about some of these issues. Let's not talk about personalities. Let's talk what's important to you. What's really important to you? Are the farmers up here? What's going on with the family farms up this way? What's going on with manufacturing? Have you seen the statistics? Have you seen the economy lately and the jobs that are coming back? Have you seen how America is once again the leader in the free world? And people are rallying for us and to us as opposed to against us. We got to talk about issues. You're not going to win a whole lot. You're not going to build this party, Pam, by just going out and just saying, Democrats, Democrats, Democrats. You got to go out and build and tell and remind people that this area up here, the whole area in the TVA was built because of Franklin D. Roosevelt and Democrats. That brought electricity and the Redstone Arsenal to Huntsville. And hospitals that we're losing that came because of Lister Hill. The Clean Water Act and others because of Bill Nichols and other folks. The Democrats gave us Social Security. The Democrats gave us Medicare. The Democrats gave us Medicaid. And it wasn't socialism. It wasn't that. It was good government. Doing what good government is supposed to do, and that is help people. Making sure that we can care for people, defend people, and provide equal opportunities for everyone. And in that, we've got to do, there's a great book. If you haven't seen this, I would highly recommend that everybody in this room get Gary Hart, former Senator Gary Hart's newest book, called How the American Republic Can Save American Democracy. It is an incredible book, and his whole premise is this. We've got to have more civic engagement. I think Christopher talked about this in a way a moment ago, in just a different language. We got to get engaged. We got to go to the town halls. We got to go to the city council meetings. We got to go to the Board of Education meetings. We got to go to the county commissioner meetings. And we got to talk not about Republicans and Democrats, but we got to engage with people on issues that mean something. We got to push back when we need to push back, but do it in a respectful way that we can engage people. Civic engagement from the ground up is how we're going to rebuild our party, and it's how we're going to keep this country going strong. And so we have challenges in front of us. Our state party still has incredible challenges. It's still a work in progress. Okay? It is still a work in progress, and that's all I'll say. But the party will be no better than the people on the ground in places like DeKalb County. It's easy to be a Democrat when you're in Greene County. It's easy to be a Democrat when you're in Jefferson County. It's harder up here. I get it. But I know this. I know that the people in this room care about the people outside this room. That's the difference. The people in this room care about the people outside this room. And when your Republican Party meets up here, they only care about the people inside their room. That's all that they're looking at. So let's have this Big Ten. Let's understand that democracy is not pretty. It takes a lot of people talking to each other and coming together and trying to give and take. It takes people saying, I really like this, but I think I can help you on certain issues, and not be afraid to give on a few things when you don't have to compromise your principles. I think we can do that. And I think we can do that. We got to play long ball here, folks. That's what you're doing. We got to play long ball. This is not going to be, but let me tell you, between now and in 2024, this state is not going to vote for a Democrat for president. We know that. But if we can up the game and get people to take notice, well, what we got to be looking for is the 2026 cycle. And Christopher, the one thing I'll take a little bit of exception with, I don't think we need to be looking at the 2026 election as a midterm. It is our elections in Alabama.
Yes.
It is our statewide elections. And we need to make sure that we have candidates and that we can get out the votes. And we're not going to win them all, but if we can start winning and breaking, and if we can start narrowing the gap. Because, folks, if we can narrow the gap in DeKalb County, We're gonna win some races, okay? We're gonna win some races. We can get some folks out. So I know for us as Democrats in this state, and really when you look around the country, we're still struggling. I don't want anybody to think that the midterms was this giant success for Democrats. Democracy got a reprieve.
Yes.
Only a reprieve. Because there are still those forces out there. We saw what happened in Memphis. We've seen what happens across this country. And those forces are still out there. So we cannot take our foot off the gas. We've got to continue to be realistic about who we are, where we are, and where we're going, and talk to people. Because we are still in unsettled time, and we still got choppy waters in front of us as a democracy going forward. But remember what Robert F. Kennedy said. He said, we all wish at times we lived in a more tranquil world, but we don't. But different times are difficult and perplexing, so too are they challenging and filled with opportunities. That's why you're here. You know the challenge and you see the opportunities. So let's take those. I am so happy to see you guys and to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir.
I don't have a question.
No.
I just want to commend you because they said all the things that I've been thinking. We're all Americans and we need to work together with our fellow Republicans and their fellow Alabamians. So we need to work on our platform to represent democracy, Christianity, and we need to misinform these brothers that have gone over to the Republican Party. They were Democrats. So let's try to work with them. Whatever small way we can to get them back into our party. And us to develop some quality candidates, some charismatic folks like John F. Kennedy, Franklin Roosevelt. So that's,
Well,
I commend you.
I want you to remember, because you're absolutely right, but remember this. Bipartisanship takes two sides.
Yes.
And right now, what we're seeing in Alabama, down in Montgomery, and what I see so too much in Washington is that you got one side who just says like, no, 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 no. Okay? I'm on the board of the Georgetown Institute of Politics and Policy. We had a meeting yesterday. Georgetown's a fairly progressive liberal college. And the Institute is really a bipartisan group trying to get, but they can't get Republicans to come speak. They just want to be associated. So we've got challenges. And the challenges, though, to me, are with the folks right there in the middle, who instinctively are offended by the far left as much as they are the far right, and that's where we can have some success. So, make sure we can do that. So thank you very much. You only get one part.
Chris and one's great. Chris, I remember when you were, in 2020, you remember coming into our office for the first time and you didn't know we were here. Remember? And then you got active in politics and you saw us being visible, like we were here, we were represented for the first time in a long time. Senator Jones, is that not the case? Like we need to be in our neighborhoods, in our community, small, large, whatever, just doing something positive.
It is a wonderful point. Let me give y'all a couple of statistics, because one of the things that I'm working on, my wife will tell you I'm working on too many things, and none around the house. But I've got a C3 and a C4 organization called Every Voice that we are doing a lot of work. And beginning to do a lot of work in the South. And one of the things we're doing is we're looking at a lot of numbers. We're doing some data crunching because the Democrats are so far behind Republicans in data. Do y'all realize that the Republican Party right now has about 20 to 30,000 data points on every person in America over the age of 60? Okay, that's how far they are in advance. So we're working on that. Here's a couple of really interesting statistics. First of all, Alabama does pretty good registering to vote. We've got 3.78 million, something like that. So 80% or more of people eligible to vote are registered to vote. The problem is we don't vote. We are still in the bottom third in voter turnout. Roughly 22 to 23% of registered voters in Alabama, have never cast a ballot. Ever. That's not low propensity voters. That is, I registered and I ain't voted. I think half of those, if you look demographically, probably 55% of those are Democratic voters or potential Democratic voters. So we got to engage people 24/7. So I'm so glad you're doing this in January, and there's not an election next month. Democrats have this tendency to not start working until 90 days before the election. Yeah, and we register people and then we just let them go. And then we try to get votes out and we get the same voters out. And that's great. We got to do that. But we got to engage people and our younger voters. And y'all will appreciate this. By younger, I mean age 45 and younger. I'm not talking about just like Christopher. I'm talking about age 45 and younger. The demographics are, look, they're not as conservative. They're much more diverse. They're more progressive. But you go down and they don't vote. In my election in 2020, registered voters age 65 plus, which are older, whiter, and more conservative voters, 71% got out to vote. 71%. Ages 18 to 29, more diverse, more progressive, 42%. Almost the same number of voters total. But the younger voters didn't get out. Now, why is that? Maybe it's because they don't think their votes count. And that's why we got to make sure we change that. Maybe it's because it's too hard to vote in Alabama. You voting on one day, hard to do mail-in votes. We got to change that. There's any number of reasons, and part of it, candidly, is because we've not done a good job of reminding these younger voters that we're the ones trying to tackle the climate crisis. We're the ones trying to give equal opportunities. We're the ones trying to make sure that when your children go to school, that some gunman's not going to come in there and start shooting the place up. That we're the ones that are trying to do these things. And we've got to remind people in a very, very respectful way of what we are trying to do, because it is America that can lead the world, but we're not going to solve the climate crisis if this is just about who caused it. Businesses will come around. Our younger folks, the younger folks like Christopher are the key. They're in Alabama. You look at how this state is changing. It's a slower change than some places, but it's changing. It's changing in South Carolina. It's changing in Tennessee. It's changing in North Carolina. And in Alabama, we've got to recognize it. And we've got to grab those voters now, or else they will become those older conservative voters that get conditioned to just simply vote another way. So, your question is a really good one, and engaging people and being in those communities. Again, going back to the civic engagement, going to the town hall, making a point on a Saturday or a Friday night or a Thursday, whenever these meetings are, of dragging out there and doing it and asking the tough questions, but doing it in a way and pushing back when somebody starts just saying crazy stuff. And they will. They absolutely will. So, thanks for that.
You.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm going to just kind of piggyback off of a point that Senator Jones made. I am also from Birmingham. I am the senior field attorney for the National Labor Relations Board here in the state of Alabama. As a progressive agency, we were created as part of the New Deal by President Franklin Roosevelt. And even though we do not go out and speak about policies in terms of Democrat and Republican, the things that we talk about, the issues we talk about, are naturally progressive in just what they are. And these labor rights and these progressive ideals they reach Alabamians when you talk about it, not just Democrat and Republican. The example of that in these past 2 years, with the support we have had from the Biden administration infused into the National Labor Relations Board, Alabama has seen the largest growth in labor organization, labor membership of any state in the nation.
Wait a minute, repeat that. I heard that on the radio the other day. Y'all understand what he just said? After just so long, Alabama saw the largest increase in union participation, union membership of any state in the country. That is opportunity.
400,000 added to union membership in Alabama in the last year. Wow. Those issues, those people, they support the issues that the Democratic Party stands for. They getting them out will and can make a huge difference in every election. So we want to be sure that as Democrats, and as I try to do in my off time when I'm a Democrat, is get these people involved with us, out to the polls, because it's the labor movement, the growing labor movement in this state, and talking to them about issues, I think is going to make a huge difference for us.
Issues that mean something important to their kitchen table, and that we're not going to take away their guns, we're not going to do other stuff and get away from the things that so many rank and file have voted against us. But those issues are beginning to resonate with rank and file members across the country right now, because they finally have seen what a union president can do for American labor and bringing back these jobs in the United States. So thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any hope for the state party? And what about get organized and get situated?
I was there last Saturday. I don't know if there's any.
Just how we did.
Well, a lot of people, I don't think people fully appreciated all that the DNC did.
Right.
Back a couple of years ago. Right. I mean, I put a lot of political capital on the line, and it hurt me. It really did. It still does today in this state. The folks that have been my friends for a long time. And but what we did, we got the bylaws of the party changed to be more inclusive. I got accused of trying to take away power of black voters, and unfortunately, it's just like Donald Trump. If you say something enough, people tend to believe it, and they don't look at the numbers. And the fact is, the DNC really helped us formulate a plan to add young people. Back in 2018 in the election, there were only, the average age of the state Democratic Executive Committee was about 60. Okay? There were only a handful of people under the age of 35. So we added about 30, and added about 45 or 50. Okay? We added a Hispanic caucus that had been resisted by the minority caucus for long. We added an LGBTQ caucus, which had been resisted. And ultimately, when we got all those people elected, it proved that the point I was making, that we weren't trying to dilute any of the base voting that we've got here, which is the African American community. Because when we did the bylaw change, 63% of the SDC was black. When we got through and we added 75 people, 63% was still black. Okay? The only demographic that actually lost votes was white folks. And those are facts. Okay? Those are facts. And so what we've seen, unfortunately, we had a group of young people who had a group come in that really wanted to do great things to the party. And COVID really hurt us. We're people persons. We're not Zoom people. And COVID really, really hurt. I don't want anybody to think that it was lack of leadership or lack of trying. But COVID really hurt. Just at the time, you know, we were trying to get rolling a little bit. Everything shut down. And even in my race, y'all were up here when we did drive-in, you know, rallies and stuff in 2020. So, and then we could not find decent candidates to run. And I say decent, they were all decent, but they were not good candidates, just being honest. It was hard. After my loss, after Walt Maddox's loss, it's hard to tell somebody to come out there and do it. So this year, after the SDC elections, you know, it appeared that the old guard was taking over again. And let me tell you what happened. The old guard came in and they wanted to change the bylaws back. Okay? They wanted to get rid of these caucuses. They wanted to change it. They wanted to put the power back in the hands of essentially one person. But they called a meeting to do that and they didn't get a quorum. And they didn't get a quorum because people recognize that they don't want to do that. Even folks that you wouldn't expect decided, I'm not going to go to that meeting because I am not going to challenge somebody, but I'm not going to support it. So they had the meeting the other day. Once again, those bylaws were out there. They never got brought up for a vote because they didn't have the votes. They didn't have the votes to change. And so there was no, essentially, except for filling a few vacancies, there was no business
Absolutely.
being conducted. And people went all the way to Montgomery, Alabama for that. But it was important. Sometimes the best game plan is a strong defense. And that's what they played last week. So I'm not giving up hope. I'm not giving up hope with the leadership that we've got. I'm not going to give up hope at all. I think there can be still opportunities going forward. We got a long time before 2026, and I think there are opportunities. I know that there are some things with the county party chair, Ben Harris, is going around trying to do some things. I need to get him up here, try to help build the local parties. But the biggest problem that we've got, folks, is trying to build a bench. I mean, it's hard to build a party when you don't have really competitive candidates. I'm not going to say strong, great candidates, but competitive candidates in local races as well as statewide races. So we got to build a bench. For too long, the party has atrophied, and we don't really have a bench out there. So we got to start looking now. Who are going to be the candidates in 26? Who are going to be the potential candidates in 26 to kind of carry the mantle of the party? And it doesn't have to be members of the legislature. It can be county commissioners. It can be city councilors. It can be business leaders. It can be educators. There's a lot of folks out there. And one of the things that we're trying to do with my Every Voice group is to try to show people that their races matter, that they can do it. And they can be competitive. But you're gonna have to be candid with folks. You're gonna have to say, we're building. And we build by getting people out there and putting themselves out there and being authentic about it and who you are, not trying to run a race that's Republican-like, but be who you are. And I think we've got real opportunities. I really do. I'm not going to give up hope on the state party just yet.
What I was most impressed with was those caucuses you mentioned. They are the ones who, they have plans. They have objectives, what they want to do going forward. And they knew their Robert's rules. They also knew our bylaws, and they were ready to go.
Yeah.
So that was the exciting part of it. The rest of it.
In particular.
What?
The youth caucus.
Oh, the youth caucus was.
And the great thing is you didn't see my fingerprints.
No. But I did meet your lovely wife there, though.
Yeah, she's there.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, the other thing about it, the one thing I did do with all, I said, guys, they weren't getting notices about this stuff. They weren't being recognized. I said, you got to show up and you got to demand to be credentialed. And get there. And they did. And the minute they seated all those folks, it was over. They knew those bylaws were going to get defeated again. And so, look, there are a lot of opportunities, and it is the youth, it is the caucuses that are doing things. And so there, you know, look, there's a lot I think can be done. But I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back. Don't wait on the state party.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right,
Do not
exactly.
wait on the state party. You gotta do this here.
Yeah.
You gotta work here. And here's the other thing I'm gonna say that I think is important. It's wonderful you're here this morning on Saturday morning, having a nice breakfast. You need to not only give your time, you need to give some of your money. Okay? I can tell you this, that local parties cannot function without some kind of at least modest amount of income coming in, to have a room, to have these events, to be able to do the kind of things to support folks when they need to be supported. And so please, y'all think about that, some kind of recurring donations. And I think in the coming year, you're going to see more about what we're doing around the South and in Alabama. Because I'm just telling you guys, the demographics are changing, and we got to take advantages of when they can take. The one fault I had with the party over the last couple of years is that we didn't take advantage of a couple of special elections. There were some special elections for the House that I just think we lost real opportunity. My race was a special election.
Yeah, right.
And when you've got just one race on the ballot, you don't have to deal. You know that when people go to the polls, that's the thing, the advantage we had. We knew that they knew who were they going to vote for. It wasn't just a Republican or a Democrat issue. And there'll be more special elections. And those are ones that we really got to focus on, because if you look and find who voted in the presidential primaries, you'll see that if we can just get those folks out again, we can win almost any race. Okay? Because the turnout is generally low, and we'll see. So I can just rattle on it. But support the local party. Do not give up on the state party. Yeah, support from here on the ground, and yeah. And there's a lot going on. And when you see folks standing up and try to talk about the state party and doing things in a unified way to keep these caucuses together, to keep the youth engaged, and keep all of these caucuses together, support that. Both social media and other.
That's pretty good. Knowing the number that we have here in DeKalb based on vote and then seeing the low turnout, the people that actually voted. How do we help address the people that feel what's the point? How do we encourage them to say, we may not win, but we have to show our numbers. We have to show that we are.
Yeah.
But how do you go about getting those people that haven't voted in the last, however many?
It's tough. And I wish I had a silver bullet that would answer that, but I don't. But here's what I have. And I wanted to do this in the 2020 election, and it really, as a candidate in a tough race, that you can't tell people that, look, voting even for candidates who lose means something. Because that was just giving off the wrong message. But the fact is, it's very true. Because, it's one thing to lose races in a big, big way. It's another when you start narrowing it. Because when you start narrowing it, people start paying attention. And, I firmly believe in the daggers and that is, you can't always get what you want. And if you try sometime, you just might find you get what you need. And if you can narrow those gaps, if you can narrow those gaps, you're going to affect change in DeKalb County. You're going to have people paying attention. And when people stand up and listen, they're not going to want to just dismiss you out of hand. They know that maybe they have to play the right wing base, but they're going to still have to get elected. They still got constituents. That's number one. I really think that making sure people understand that voices matter even in losing races. Their voice and their vote makes a difference. The other thing I would say is that, are you satisfied with the way things are? Are you satisfied that Alabama still lags behind everybody else in education and healthcare? Are you satisfied that we didn't expand Medicaid and we lost billions of dollars in the state and 350,000 people don't have good health insurance? Your neighbors don't have good health insurance because Republicans refuse to expand Medicaid. Are you satisfied with that? Are you satisfied that Republicans in Washington, D.C. are wanting to hold the national debt hostage in order to cut Medicaid and Social Security? Is that something that you're really satisfied? If you are, then by all means, don't vote. Don't ask them to go vote for the other side. Just say don't vote. If you're not satisfied, how do you want to effectuate change? You know, change doesn't come overnight. I mean, progress is incremental. That's the way our country was made. Look, our democracy is still a work in progress. It's still an ideal. It's still a work in progress. It's not perfect. And it may never be perfect. But we've got to continually work at it. And for folks that are satisfied, and let me tell you, there's a lot of people that are. A lot of people doing just fine. They're satisfied. They don't care about the Navy. They don't care what and they don't understand that if they lift their neighbors up, they get lifted up too. They don't understand that the non-unions that want to fight the union, that it's the unions that's keeping the wages up. It's not their employers that are getting out of their good graces. The unions are keeping their wages. And the Democrats, educating is the way that's the way you gotta just say. I think, but people do have to understand that even losing races, your vote matters. And I try to tell everybody, and folks like Lowell who had to fight some of these redistricting wars over the years, just think about this. The way we're so damn gerrymandered in this case, and I apologize for using local profanity in front of the young person. My kids are used to it. But I want y'all to think about it. We are so gerrymandered. Okay? There are so many districts in this state, in the state house, the state senate, that the nomination, and this is both Democrat and Republican, but mainly Republican, okay, because they kind of consolidated all the Democrats in areas, but they're so gerrymandered that the most you win the Republican primary, you're going to win the race. It doesn't matter. You can do like Katie Britt did in the state line, not spend a dime in the general election. Now think about this. All right, let me just throw out hypothetical numbers. Let's suppose we got a Senate district that's got 100 people in it. Now, by and large, statistically, about 40 of those 100 are Democrats. Okay? About 40, maybe 35. Let's just say 35. That means 65 are Republicans. Well, that's enough to win an election in November. But how many of the 65 will vote in a Republican primary? Half of them? We rarely, I think, will get above 50% in the primary. John, do you agree with that? Rarely get above 50%. So let's just say out of the 65 Republicans, 40 of them vote. How many do you have to win? 20. 20 or 21 people to win that primary. So 20% out of 100% are going to decide the nomination. And statistically, in Alabama, that number is probably closer to 15%. 15. So when you are a Republican and you only have to appeal to 15% of the base, you get some weird stuff. You get some weird stuff out there. And so we've got to make sure people understand those numbers. That what you're seeing is the result of gerrymandering and a very right-wing Republican base that always gets out the vote. And that we've got to start turning out in numbers in our primaries and our general election to start countering that. Because the minute that person decides, wait a minute, you mean I only won this race with 51 or 52% of the vote in November and 48% voted for a Democrat? They're going to pay attention. They're going to pay attention. And that far right base is not going to be. I know that's getting wonky, but you know we're really getting into some of these numbers in Alabama. And I'm telling you, those numbers are out there for Democrats, with people that are not voting, with people that are what I call low propensity voters that have just kind of either given up and they don't fully appreciate. They look at the loudest, craziest voices of the Democratic Party on the left, and they think that's not for me. But they don't look at the rest of the party. The party is not the squad. The party is not the far left. The party is right where it needs to be. Right, pretty much down the middle, maybe a little center left, but it's right there because and the only reason it's maybe center left as opposed to center right is because we're the people. We want to narrow that income gap. We want to make sure everybody has good health care. We want to make sure everybody has good education. We are for unions. We are for public transportation. We are for all of those things that lift people in. And people are talking about this deficit. Don't let me tell you, when people start telling you about this debt limit and cut spending, you don't have to take them to school a little bit. Okay? They don't know what they're talking about. If we default on our debt, this economy is going to tank. It's not going to cause a government shutdown like we've had in the past. Those are appropriations. That's funding the government going forward. This is paying your bills that you've already incurred, and a third or more of the federal debt that exists right now came as a result of Donald Trump and his tax. Right? Those are numbers that cannot be limited to like 35%. Yeah, no. This debt ceiling issue is about paying our debts that have been incurred in the past.
Paying your credit card.
Yeah. Now look, we did go up on the debt a little bit in COVID, but we had to. I make no apologies for voting on a $2 trillion package to save your lives and to save businesses. Okay, but what folks don't know in the last appropriations bill that we actually cut the deficit by $1.2 trillion. So I mean, that's what Democrats do. That's what we can do when we maintain control. And but it's issues like that. I'm just telling you guys. If you walk in and somebody is complaining and you say, let me tell you what the Democrats are doing, they're going to shut you off. You just need to talk to them about the issues and the facts. You're pushing back on the facts and the issues, and then we'll have the candidates later on come by and talk. Yes, ma'am.
How do we get Katie Porter and her whiteboard kind of training going on?
It's really,
She makes perfect sense.
it's real
Break it down.
I mean, look, those numbers are there.
Yeah.
You just need to take that aboard with you when you go. If you're going to go to a city council meeting, you're going to go and there's these big issues. Go with facts. Katie's not doing anything that's extraordinary. She's just taking facts, and she's putting them in a visual that people can see and that gets attention from the media. So it's simply a knowledge base. And knowing the facts and saying, God, look it up. Here are facts. This is the facts about unemployment. This is the facts about union growth in Alabama. These are the facts about where we are as a people in this state, how far we are behind. Now, look, we've done some good things. I don't want anybody to think that Alabama hadn't moved in some good ways. We have. But we have brought in jobs. We brought in companies. And that's great. I told these guys in Birmingham, though, I said, I started out by thinking my first question is, I want to take a poll. How many people in this room are still struggling to hire employees? And 60% of them raise their hand.
Yeah.
You're struggling. I said, okay. No. Because I circled back. After that, I said, now let me tell you, 60% or more are struggling, and a bunch more raised their hand when I said, know somebody in their businesses are struggling. It was almost everybody. I said, but now Alabama's got historic unemployment. It's below 3%. How do you square that? How do you square historic unemployment with the fact that you can't find people for jobs? Part of it is wages, but part of it is that we don't have enough people in there. We don't have enough people. And because we've got a brain drain, young folks are leaving Alabama. The people that we attract at the University of Alabama and Auburn and North Alabama and every other place, they get their degrees and they go back somewhere. We're not attracting people. We're not keeping our young folks here, and we don't have a sensible immigration system that is welcoming immigrants to this country that we can do. And I'm going to say, Republicans don't want that. The immigration issue is the new abortion issue. And they don't want one because they want to use it to get politically and to scare people. And we're not doing a good enough job of explaining that a healthy economy is dependent upon a healthy immigration system. We need to know who's coming into this country. We need to be able to document that. There's no question about it. We need to be able to work with folks because we can have people working and our economy can grow if we have a good immigration system. It's just crazy, isn't it?
Republicans want the immigrants to work for them.
Oh yeah, yeah. They do. They want to dog it, but they, you know.
And Doug, we've had Latinos here living here for 30
yeah.
years, and they still can't get their citizenship. In many cases, you know, all kinds of problems because
Right.
Republicans don't want them to become citizens so they can vote.
Well, let me tell you, I agree. Or either just give them some permanent residency where they're not necessarily voting, but at least have them. When my first few months in the Senate, I worked with a group of about 24, 25 senators, all bipartisan. I mean, it was literally half and half. And we meet once a week in Susan Collins' office because then President Donald Trump said, you know what? This is what I think we ought to do. He made a complete turn and said, we need to make sure that we do two pillars of immigration reform. Forget the big comprehensive. Let's do what we can do. Let's give a path to citizenship for dreamers, the DACA kids. Let's do that. It's the only country they've ever known. And second, let's do something to secure our borders in ways I'll let y'all figure it out. That sounds great. And that's what we did. We had a bill that we put on the floor of the Senate that would give a pathway to citizenship. It took a while, but it was one that we worked out for kids that have never known any other country other than the United States of America, and who are doctors and lawyers and members of our military. And we can provide a bunch of money for border security that included building some barriers, but also increasing technology at the points of entry, doing a number of things, adding immigration judges and things to move the process along. Well, here's what happened. 3 days before we were going to put that on the floor, Donald Trump changes his mind. He says, no, we can't do this. These other countries, we need to do something about the number of visas. We need to do this. And he just torpedoed it. And there were 3 immigration bills that got on the floor. One was his bill. One was our bill, and there was another one that was, I don't remember what it even was. Our bill came within 3 votes. And I used 3 because there were 3 Democrats that voted against it. They would have voted for it if we could have gotten it. We came within about 3 votes of being able to get 60. And the control of the, and it would have passed in the House at that time, I think, if we had been able to do something. And so they torpedoed it for political reasons. And so we got to do that. But we've also got to explain to people. I think it's important to explain to people when we talk about, you know, folks coming across this country just to take your job. Say, what job? We've got everybody that wants to work in this country can work right now. Everybody. But we still are going to get everybody. We had 0 unemployment, there would still be people trying to employ people. We got to connect those dots, folks. That's what Democrats have not had. We've not done a good enough job of connecting the dots of progress with immigration and with equality and respect, justice. We haven't connected those dots. Just man. We've been here now all damn day.
Okay, I am immigrant. I came from Mexico 30 years ago with my kids, all illegal. And
I know when I talk to immigrants, it's personal because I know what it is. It is not easy. A lot of people say, "Oh, why you not get your citizen?" It's not easy. It's impossible. It's impossible. Like it's I am a citizen because I was lucky and a white man married me. It made a
I think he was the lucky guy.
Yeah.
and he give me my residence with my kids. But the other way, it is no law that they can like. Okay, if you have a perfect record like I was, no tickets, no driving tickets, no nothing, perfectly, you still not qualified, even if you pay taxes. A lot of people say that immigrants don't pay taxes. Come on, see the paycheck.
Yeah,
It's a lot of taxes taken off. And the other, we don't get nothing back. No one, nothing.
It's a very complicated system that needs overhaul from top to bottom. And one of the things I've also said too,
Yeah,
I said, you know what, maybe if we required everybody that was born in this country to take a citizenship.
No, for being Americans, you've got to learn the whole United States history. Make me like 2 years. Yes,
And
when
you
I
know-
took my application, I was
And you know that history probably better than most graduates in high school.
but I remember when my husband me to take the test because was so many questions and we don't know what question I'm gonna get. He said, "Oh my goodness, I don't even know this."
I was the same here in high school. My government didn't go much.
That's why when anybody has Latinos is the one picker up the salary. It's not. If I know how is that job because I did it. It's in this time when you picker up are frozen. I have 3 or 4 paragraphs, and even that I cannot feel my fingers, my face. I don't feel that because I was frozen. And the strawberry, the being bending back all day long, pick her up, all that. And you see one from here, or legal, like citizen. No, you see residents and you see illegals working in there. Why? We don't come to take anybody's job. We come to do the work a lot of people don't want to do it.
One of the things I would say, I would encourage all of you. This is so good. Y'all should maybe hide some of all the Democratic stuff, like sometimes, and have everybody in this room bring 2 people to a breakfast to just talk. To just talk, and don't. You're not recruiting them. You're not doing. You're just saying, "Oh, we need to understand." Yeah, yeah. Just to come, just say, "Look, this is it." But we're trying to understand. We want to talk. We want to try to do things because this party wants to represent people in this country, all people in this county. So we're gonna have to wind up, folks. Y'all, and I do have to get back in a few minutes. So I'm gonna take one more question, and it is gonna be from my favorite person, who I'm going to apologize again for. Yes, ma'am. Live it. Good question. What can kids do? What can kids do? Let me tell you, the most important thing that kids can do right now is learn. Okay? Learn history. Learn people. The second most important thing is respect other people. So that you live by example. You can have more influence on people in this room by living an example and telling adults, no, don't treat somebody that way. Don't act that way. Don't do this. We want to make sure everybody has some. And if you do that, if you take the lead, people are gonna notice more than a former US senator. They're gonna notice when people are up there, because if you look and know what's going on and using your God-given talent to do things for every people in the pushback, that's how you do it, and that's how we gotta teach our kids and our grandkids and everybody in here. So I expect you to be governor over there.
Thank you so much, Doug. I remember the 2017 election. When we elected, sorry. And yes, please. There's my money right there. Election night. We had election night parties going on all over the state. I know y'all had an election night party here. I've seen the movie of it. It was a great movie. But we were in Huntsville, and we had the small room, but there was over 500 people in that room. As soon as that blue check mark came up on Madison County, I'm like, okay, I'll be happy with this. Because we've worked so hard to canvass and to call, and we've worked at headquarters, and we've worked so hard for Doug. But when that blue check mark came up that he had won, the euphoria in that room was absolutely overwhelming. There was screams, there was shouts, there was prayers, there was laughter, there was tears. It was the most wonderful moment, I think, Doug, that I had felt in my entire life. Seriously, it was serious euphoria. I want to feel that euphoria again. And the only way that we can feel this euphoria again is to work. We've got to get this committee together. We've got to educate the voters. We've got to do the things that we know work and that we can do. So let's do it. We've got applications back there on the desk. If you want to join this committee, if you want to join this party, sign up at the committee. We're only charging a $25 fee. That will last until 2016, when you need to be on the ballot to get elected. And I hope that we have elections in this committee, 2026. And I hope we have elections. I hope we want people to join this party so bad that we will have elections for our committee. Toby, you got a comment?
I was just a happy face.
John?
Well, when I came in, I didn't see a jar or anywhere back here to pay for lunch. Well, surely we.
There's a basket here. There's a basket on the table.
Is there?
Contribute,
All right.
Let's have a jar back there for contributions. If we'll all kick in some money, the senator, I'm thinking that didn't dwell on it. Well, I mean, we're gonna have money to make things work.
Yes, we did.
That's what makes the math right. So let's have and everybody, $10, $5, $100. Let's leave a pot with some money to help our local party.
Roll around every dollar we got. Remember that. Thank you all for coming out. Special thanks to Doug, special thanks to Laurel and John and Judge Cole and Jimmy Lindsay. It's so wonderful to have all you here. Thank you, Christopher, for joining. Thank you.
Well, Simple's here somewhere.
Yeah, Lord, Thank you all for coming. A couple of housekeeping things. Angie Sugar is the president of Little River Waterkeeper, and she has some T-shirts here for sale. And all the benefits are going to our Leah, who has to have a liver transplant. She's going to have lodging and food that she has to pay for after her transplant. So please buy a T-shirt. Let's go, Leah. On February the 16th, I'm having a fundraiser at my house in Henniker to benefit Leah in her transplant journey. We're going to, and she's having the transplant at Vanderbilt. So she's going to have to stay in Nashville for between 4 and 6 weeks. So she can be watched and taken care of.
And then I'll be back.